Welcome to Books in Brief. Today we are strapping ourselves in for what might be the most counterintuitive deep dive we've ever done on the art of communication.
I think so.
We're talking high-stakes negotiation, pulled directly from the world of, kidnappings and bank standoffs. We're diving into Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as If Your Life Depended on It by Chris Voss.
And that title, it's really not an exaggeration. Chris Voss was the FBI's lead international kidnapping negotiator. So the material we're looking at here is a stack of, well, experiential knowledge. These are tactics that were forged in crisis.
Right, where a simple miscommunication could have a catastrophic outcome.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to shortcut your path to being well-informed on what Voss calls tactical empathy. This book promises that those high-pressure life-or-death strategies work just as effectively, like in your office, at home.
Or when challenging your boss, yeah. And the core idea is pretty revolutionary because it challenges decades of traditional negotiation theory. Well, Voss had to figure out why his field-tested tactics actually worked. And in doing that, he realized the academic world, had kind of missed the mark. They assumed rationality was the goal.
He found what?
He discovered success relies on acknowledging that people are fundamentally irrational.
Okay, let's unpack that intellectual clash, because the book makes it clear. It starts with blood and disaster. It sets up the history that forced law enforcement to completely change how they handled these situations.
It did. Before the 1970s, law enforcement often just saw negotiation as a delaying tactic. You talk until you can go tactical. It was all brute force.
And the outcomes were horrible.
Horrific. You had the 1971 Attica prison riots where 39 people were killed, and then the 1972 Munich Olympics. Those events forced a global reckoning.
But it wasn't just common sense that changed things, right? The book points to a specific court decision.
Yes. The landmark 1975 Downs v. United States decision. The ruling basically chastised the FBI for turning a negotiation into a shooting match.
And that created a legal mandate.
It did. The key phrase was that a reasonable attempt at negotiations must be made prior to a tactical intervention. That one sentence shifted the entire culture. They had to get good at talking and get good fast.
And that's where the FBI's Crisis Negotiation Unit and Chris Voss came from.
Right.
Now let's contrast that with the reigning academic theory of the time. We're talking about the Harvard Negotiation Project.
And their huge foundational text, Getting to Yes, by Roger Fisher and William Ury, it taught a very systematic, very rational approach.
I mean, that's what you see in business schools, right? All these acronyms?
Exactly. BTNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, your walkaway point. And ZUIP, the zone of possible agreement. The whole idea was to separate the people from the problem, be logical.
That seems perfectly logical.
Yeah.
So why did Voss and the FBI argue that this rational framework was just fundamentally flawed?
Because it completely assumes that humans, when you give them logical facts, will behave rationally. And Voss just found that was useless under real-world pressure.
He had a different view of human nature.
A very different view. His core realization was that pure intelligence and, mathematical logic, they fail. They fail unless you accept that we are, in his words, crazy, irrational, impulsive, emotionally driven animals.
What's so amazing is that these FBI tactics, they perfectly align with what behavioral economists would later prove.
That's the real hook. You don't have to read all of Daniel Kahneman's work because Voss was already applying the findings in the field.
Right, the whole System 1 and System 2 brain idea.
Exactly. Kahneman showed we have System 1, that's our fast, instinctive, emotional animal mind, and System 2, which is the slow, logical, deliberative one. Traditional Harvard models, they all talk to System 2.
But Voss's methods.
They target System 1 first, every time.
Which brings us to this fantastic story of Voss testing his street smarts against the Harvard elite back in 2006.
Oh, this is great. He talks his way into Harvard Law School's winter negotiation course and goes head-to-head with these brilliant students, all of them steeped in that rational model.
And he's assigned a counterpart named Andy.
A brilliant student, yeah, who's using all the cutting-edge rational theories. And in a mock negotiation, Voss just steamrolls him.
The instructor, Sheila Heen, even said Voss achieved something incredible. He got literally every dime from Andy, and Andy was supposed to hold back a quarter of the budget in reserve.
And the secret weapon wasn't some aggressive demand. It wasn't even saying no.
It was just a question.
Just one specific type of question. A deferential, calibrated, open-ended question. How am I supposed to do that? He just repeated it.
So Andy, the rational guy, He just got worn out.
He got worn out trying to justify his own position, and he ended up negotiating against himself. It's brilliant.
Okay, but hang on. Wouldn't just repeating, how am I supposed to do that, sound incredibly weak? Or, I don't know, even aggressive in a real business meeting?
That's the key distinction, It's all about the delivery, which we'll get to. But the words themselves are so powerful because they force the other person to confront your problem from their perspective.
Ah, so you make your problem their problem.
That's it. When Andy started trying to justify why Voss couldn't meet his terms, he realized his own terms were impossible. You're guiding their emotional system one, and then their logical system two just kind of provides the justification for the change.
So, if negotiation is an emotional game, let's get into the tools. Voss says the very first thing we negotiate isn't the deal. It's our delivery.
He starts with the famous 738-55% rule. Only 7% of a message is the words, 38% is your tone, and 55% is nonverbal.
So how we are is more important than what we say.
Way more important. Our brains process intention before they process data, so you have to master your vocal performance first.
And he suggests three main negotiator voices. The first one is the late-night FM DJ voice.
Right, and this one you have to use selectively. It's for making a critical point or shifting power. It's calm, it's slow, deep, and it has this downward inflection at the end of every sentence.
It's like the example he gives of taking over a call.
Yeah, Joe's gone. This is Chris. You're talking to me now. That downward inflection just signals total control, and it instantly lowers the emotional temperature.
But most of us aren't dealing with bank robbers. So what's the default tone?
That would be the second one. The positive, playful voice. This is your default. It's light, encouraging, relaxed. And Voss really emphasizes actually smiling, even on the phone.
Why smiling?
Because that slight upward curve of your facial muscles, it translates into a subtle positive change in your tone. And the other person picks up on it unconsciously. It signals you're approachable and safe.
Okay, beyond voice, maybe the easiest and most underrated tool he talks about is mirroring. He calls it a conversational Swiss Army knife.
And it is. It's disarmingly simple. You just repeat the last 1 to 3 critical words the other person just said.
That's it. 2 copies.
That's it. The genius is in the effect. It insinuates similarity, it builds rapport, and it encourages the other side to just keep talking and clarify what they mean without feeling like they're being interrogated.
The book has that great relatable example of the student whose boss wants her to make 2 copies of a massive client file. Thousands of pages.
Right. And instead of arguing or complaining, she just mirrored 2 copies.
And the boss clarified. One for them, one for the customer.
So she mirrored again, slightly differently. So one for the client and one for internal use. And just by talking it out, the boss started justifying the need for all that paper and then realized how absurd it was.
And he backs down himself.
Completely. He says, you know what? Forget the paper. Just create 2 digital backups. The mirror deflected the order and made the boss solve the problem for her.
That brings us to pure tactical empathy, which isn't about agreeing with someone, right? It's about understanding them.
That's the core. And the first tool for that is labeling.
So emotional telepathy.
Basically, it's about validating an emotion by acknowledging it out loud. You start with tentative phrases like, it seems like, or it looks like you're feeling frustrated.
And there's real science behind this. When you label a strong emotion, activity in the brain literally shifts.
It does. The intensity moves from the amygdala, the primitive fear center, to the rational parts of the prefrontal cortex. Just applying rational words to a raw emotion disrupts its power.
And Voss says to address the negative stuff first.
Always. You confront the negative dynamics right away, you label their fears or assumptions, and it just clears the road.
A more powerful, proactive version of this is the accusation audit, which sounds intense.
It feels bold, but it works. It's the tactic of listing the worst things the other person might be thinking about you and saying them first.
Like if you're asking for a raise, you might say.
You'd say, you probably think I'm being selfish bringing this up when the company is tight on cash, and it looks like I'm just complaining about my workload.
And this preemptive strike takes the sting out of it.
Instantly. What usually happens is the other person jumps in to deny the worst things. No, I don't think you're selfish. I just need to figure out the budget. You've created a safe zone of empathy before the real discussion even starts.
And all of this leads to the ultimate breakthrough signal, which he says is not yes.
Absolutely not. The breakthrough is, that's right.
Okay, let's nail that distinction because it's so important. Why is "you're right" the worst answer you can get?
Because it's often a counterfeit agreement. It's what someone says to get you to shut up and go away. You know, like a teenager telling a parent they're right just to end the lecture. It closes the conversation.
What's that is different?
It's the magic moment. It means the other person feels they have been heard, understood, and have fully owned the conclusion themselves.
So how do you get them to say it?
Voss says you use a concise summary. It's a combination of labeling and paraphrasing that just perfectly articulates the world according to them. You articulate their worldview so well, they feel like you've crawled inside their head.
Like the pharmaceutical rep trying to pitch a new drug to a skeptical doctor.
Exactly. The doctor was stonewalling. Instead of pushing more data, the rep summarized the doctor's perspective with labels. He said something like, "It seems like you're frustrated with insurance companies and you genuinely believe these clinical trials don't reflect the unique needs of your specific patients."
And the doctor's response.
He immediately stopped, looked at the rep, and said, "That's right." And once he felt understood, the obstacle vanished. They started working together. The problem wasn't the science. It was the doctor's need for validation.
Okay, so moving into the final stage of the negotiation, Voss talks about how to bend their reality, starting with leveraging loss aversion.
And this goes right back to behavioral economics. It's clear. People will take more risks to avoid a loss than they will to achieve an equal gain. It's primal. So you have to frame your offer around that.
You anchor their emotions in the fear of loss.
Yes, you inflame their loss aversion so they jump at avoiding it.
The story about Voss and the UAE negotiation team he was training is a perfect example. He had to tell his contractors, who normally got $2,000 a day, that he could only offer them $500.
A huge 75% cut. A brutal conversation to have.
So instead of leading with the $500 offer, which would just make them angry,
He anchored them with the extreme negative first. He told them the funding was cut so badly he might only be able to offer $500, but he wanted to bring the opportunity to them first before he took it to someone else.
wow, that is brutal. I mean, it almost feels manipulative.
It's strategically brilliant, though. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about the $1,500 they just lost. It was about the immediate, terrifying risk of losing the entire $500 to some unknown rival.
Well, they all took the deal.
Every single one, without a counteroffer. They anchored their own expectation to zero, so getting $500 felt like a massive win.
And the main goal of all these tools, the labeling, the anchoring, the mirroring, is to create what he calls the illusion of control for your counterpart.
You want them to suggest your solution, but think it was their idea.
And the way to do that is the calibrated question.
Right, we're back to that. Those open-ended questions that start with how or what, and they avoid simple yes or no verbs like can or is or are.
They force the other person to problem solve for you.
Exactly. The burden of creating the solution is on them. We saw it with Andy at Harvard, and there's another great story about a consultant named Kelly who was owed a lot of money.
And she couldn't get paid?
Nope. Then the client calls asking for more work. So Kelly, using that polite, positive voice, just asks a calibrated question. "I'd love to help, but how am I supposed to do that?"
And the result was immediate.
The client called back in 48 hours, apologized profusely, and solved a payment problem. The question turned what could have been a fight into a giant problem-solving exercise. It empowered the client to fix the relationship.
It's all rooted in that primal need to feel safe and in control.
Give them the illusion of control, and their rational mind kicks in and starts to cooperate, even as you're bending their reality toward your outcome.
So when you boil it all down, what does this all mean for you listening? Chris Voss says the biggest obstacle in any negotiation isn't the person across the table.
No, it's our own physiological fear of conflict.
We sweat because our brain is telling us to just get along with the tribe. We ignore that little voice telling us we deserve better just because we're afraid of a little disagreement.
And this book teaches that pushing for a reasonable outcome isn't bullying. It's an empathic search for hidden value. It's a tool for much deeper communication.
So what if we shifted our focus away from the fear of disagreement and maybe towards the joy of uncovering that hidden value and really understanding the person across from us in every single interaction?
That's really the big takeaway. These skills were forged in crisis, but they're really just tools for deeper understanding that you can apply everywhere in your life.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this brief exploration of the book, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, feel free to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future deep dives. New book insights are coming soon. See you next time.